Alrighty, first time back practicing since the day after Christmas. It's January 12th. Been out of state, didn't have my clubs with me. Let me grab some balls actually. Didn't have my clubs with me, so I haven't really done anything golf-wise in a while. More than 2 weeks. Almost 3 weeks. I got a bunch of burrs in my pants. I'm working on shit outside. But anyway, almost 3 weeks of without golfing. But anyway, I'm gonna start with a 9-iron. Clean the face. With my hands, not perfectly clean. No ball marks at least. Just gonna warm up. And I was talking to someone. I actually was helping them with their golf swing a little bit. And I see the same issue they had with a lot of people where their backswing, they kind of go back and they get all their pressure, all their weight onto their back foot, then everything goes forward from the top. That's not what you really see good players do. They get to here and as much pressure or weight, whatever you want to call it, that's going back is already back by the time they're around here. As their club's getting closer to the top, their pelvis, so essentially it's starting centered. They start to go back, and by the time their club's getting to the top, it's all their weight is dropping onto their front foot, their lead leg, so that my belt buckle or my pelvis is basically re-centered to where it began. You don't want to go, it's not everything back and then everything through. It's more of a, as the club's getting to the top, you want to feel like you're just falling into that front foot. And that's what you see from basically every good player. I can't think of a single good player that came back and then went through. No, it's very important to that right before the transition, you're kind of recentering and falling into that front leg. Really the only thing you have to think about is as your club's getting to the top is just, I can't reiterate this enough, just falling into that front leg. Anyway, let's hit some balls. Let's do my first swing. Yeah. It would have played, I kind of caught it thin, little off the toe, a little thin. First swing in weeks. Played less than 10 9-hole rounds all year, and I'm already giving myself a hard time. I like to keep my standards high. That way I'm always disappointed. That was flush. Maybe just a touch. If I were to nitpick, it was a touch towards the heel side with that last one. You can see the first one was a little thin. Basically right in between those two is what I'm looking for. You can see you start very 50-50. Another big mistake is if I were to draw a line from essentially the center of my leg, right where it goes into my foot, right there, I'd want that on my setup basically center of my hips. Big mistake I see is people get their butt way out here. And what that's going to do is, that's a big cause of a lot of people's early extension, especially when they only have a little early extension. It's because they're starting here. So when they get to impact, they end up there. And if they were to just start here, that early extension wouldn't be there. But since they're starting back, they need to come up into impact. That's a big thing. It's just, you're basically standing up straight. Just soften my knees a little bit. You don't want a bunch of knee flex. You don't want your butt back with a bunch of knee flex. You don't want to be reaching for the ball. No, you're basically standing up straight. And honestly, a little bit of a kind of a hunchback feel, like an old man kind of feel. Almost having a little bit of that is better than a overly straight back. You kind of want to soften your pelvis and almost like bring your belly button in, or your belt buckle in. It's a little bit of that feel. I mean, obviously that's exaggerated, but Just a tiny, just soften legs. You know, this is as straight as they can go. That's where I am. You don't want too much bend. That's a big mistake. I see too much bend. Just soften your knees a little bit. Just nice, soft. Don't be afraid to have a little bit of a rounded back. It doesn't need to be perfectly straight. That's going to mess things up. You don't want to reach for the ball, because if I'm reaching, if I were to let my hand off, you see how it's now way back here? And I have to reach for the club. If I let go and my hand's way back here, you're too far from the ball. Your hand should just come off naturally. And that is perfect with all your clubs, whether it's a 9-iron, 5-iron, driver. That felt nice. Might have even been a little, just a touch heely. Felt flush though. I'm just really nitpicking. It's a really good, I don't know, like felt like the angle of attack was good and the low point was good, real good ball to divot ratio, even if it was maybe just slightly on the heel. Part of that is I feel like I'm crowding in a little, trying to stand just a little closer. I tend to get a little stretched out and far from the ball. Didn't heel that. Flushed it. Felt a little steeper though. Kind of relearning my swing again. But seriously, I can't reiterate it enough. Letting your pressure fall into your front foot. And it's not, everything goes to the back. And now that I'm starting my downswing, now I put all my weight into my front foot. You're too late. It's before your club gets to the top. It's just that last second of your back swing, you're falling into that leg. It's not back and through. Because what's going to happen if you go back and through, you're not going to get your pressure shifted early enough, and you're going to end up probably hanging back on it, really kind of flipping and casting the club, which is going to make you hit a lot of fat shots. Or if you don't hit it fat, the club's going to be kind of coming on the upswing. You're going to be leading with the leading edge of the club, and you're going to hit a lot of fat and scold shots. And even if you do catch one solid, say it's like teed up in some rough or whatever, and you're swinging like this and catch it solid, it's just going to, it might launch a little higher and then it'll drop really quick because it won't have a lot of spin on it. You need to compress the ball to make spin. You know, I've always loved the Tiger feel of leading with the emblem of your glove. I do a lot of left-hand practice swings, or I'll take my right and just grab my left wrist, and the club just flows around you perfectly. Perfect backswing, boom. And if you notice the back of this hand, at impact, boom. That's the club face, is the back of my hand. If I open my hand, the club face opens. Close it. If I want to take loft off and hit one lower, I just feel like I have a little bow or flexion. Same thing, it's just two different terms. A little bow in my wrist through impact. I'm trying to really pinch one or hit, even with my wedge, if I want a lot of spin. Okay, let me grab a wedge. If I want a lot of spin, hit those nice low spinners the tour players hit, I really feel like I'm getting all that pressure again onto my lead side, but I'm compressing it. You can't compress the ball if your weight's back and you're flipping the club in the air. You don't need to help the ball into the air. It's the complete opposite. You want to drive the ball down into the ground. You want to turn that, this is a 54 degree, I want to turn this 54 degree into my 48 degree pitching wedge or my 44 degree 9-iron. That's the feel. You know, that's exaggerated, but still, I'm just trying to drive it down through the ground. And that's how you get that nice divot, that nice low point after the ball. I'm here catching a little heely today. That's all right though. If they feel nice, they're not too far off. Just a smidge heely. But seriously, down through the ball. I see so many people hanging back and like they're look, if your club's coming in and you're hanging back, trying to catch the ball, letting the club head pass, even if you're just more neutral. Everyone always shows that, like doing this. No one's that exaggerated. That's an exaggerated flip or a cast. But more realistically, when people are just, trying to help the ball a little bit, they're still hanging back on their back foot, and they're getting to more of like a this position at impact. And still, you're leading with the leading edge. You're probably going to skull it, because if my club's here, that wants to hit the ball, and the club's going to be traveling up instead of down. So look, if I'm leaning, with some shaft lean, I can then hit higher on the face also. A good drill for all clubs, not just wedges, is I like to kind of find your impact. Like, okay, I'd want to be, somewhere right around here at impact. So you kind of, find your impact. All right, that would be good impact. Kind of just start from there and hit a little like 3/4 shot from impact. Don't expect to hit it great. I definitely hit that a little clunky off the toe, but hit a few balls like that where you find your impact. That was much better. And just hit some 3/4 shots. And all you need to do is find impact in the start and just kind of get right back to it. And then retain that feel in your full swing. Ball is cracked. Ooh, this is the Titleist. It's going to feel a lot softer than the range balls. It just felt like butter. Felt like butter. I hit that again. Grab some more. It's funny because the two balls that aren't range balls that I say feel like butter, I would never play on the course. That's another broken one. A ton of broken golf balls. But it's a, what is it? A Titleist DT Distance. And then this Spalding golf ball. They both feel unbelievably soft compared to the rest of these dirty old range balls. But the dirty old range balls leave a really awesome imprints on the club face. They feel hard as a rock, but you have to catch them absolutely flush. I kind of like that. So if you don't catch them flush, it really lets you know. Just feels softer hitting these. So much softer. You can see though, as my hands are getting to the top, that my belt buckle might get off the ball a little bit. As I'm falling into my front foot, it basically gets my belt buckle recentered. You don't need to think like there's a lot of cause and effects. So if you're getting to the top and you're getting your pressure shifted into that front foot, you're gonna automatically recenter. I can't really get my pressure into my front foot and keep my hips back. So I've always really liked the feel of just thinking about getting all my pressure into my heels specifically. I think getting your pressure more into the back of your foot, your heel, rather than your toes. If you get into your toes, sometimes you might drive up and again get some of that early extension, but getting it more in the heel is gonna promote better rotation, or at least the center of your foot. And again, a lot of things are feels, not necessarily reals. Feels so nice. I never thought I would say see the center. I never thought I'd say a Titleist DT Distance. Felt nice. But you can hear the difference probably between those, and then listen to this range ball. I sculled it, but center skull wasn't actually a skull. It was just thin. It would have worked just fine. Again, I have high expectations, so when I catch one a little skinny, I call it a skull sometimes. Here we This one won't be a school. Nope. Flush. As flush as can be. So important to compress it. I know I've showed this before, but get yourself a driveway marker. They're $2 at Home Depot. Right? They're great for alignment. But what I like to do is I just use as a wedge, right? I have this old Nike wedge of mine from when I was a kid. You can do it to your clubs too. I just put it right in the hole through the grip. You know, I can take it out. But it's a little better to do it to an old club because it will make that hole a little bit bigger than it initially was. But I just kind of jam it in there. I see some people holding it on the side, but I like to just keep it. It's the perfect distance. It's the perfect amount sticking out for this intended purpose. But this is one of the best drills for people because it teaches you to turn through the ball, you know, not hang back. It teaches you to have forward shaft lean, not flip and cup your wrist. You can't cast early and hang back. That's what everyone does is they try to pick the ball into the air. And look, I would just hit myself. I can't really do that. The only downfall is you can't take a full follow through because it's good into about here. But then once you get to the top, it kind of catches you. But just learning on these little 3/4 shots, how to get that weight onto your front foot and not hit yourself with the stick. So I'm not hitting myself with the stick. If I were to hang back and flip, it's just hitting me right there. Couldn't do it. And you can hit balls like this. This club feels a little flat because my clubs are upright. It just teaches you such good fundamentals and technique. It's a great drill. And a good drill for the pressure shift, get it, you know, falling into the front foot I'm always talking about, is you set up, you know, basically like this with a real narrow stance. And when you're about halfway back, you don't wait till you get to the top to do this. It's about halfway back. So I'm, you know, basically right after I start my backswing, I step forward. It's not this. It's, you know, my club's at P2 right here. Step forward. You really can't step forward too soon. As long as you start your backswing first, it's just backswing forward. But you're gonna, you know, want to set up basically with the ball, you know, set up where the ball would be about middle of your stance, and then just bring your front foot back. So it's gonna basically be off your front foot with this narrow stance. That drill right there of that drill combined with the old famous Gary Player of hitting and walking it, you know, chase your ball down the fairway, get through the thing. Or I've always felt, you know, especially with a longer club, like a nice full swing, like if I'm hitting driver, I want a nice balanced finish. If I were to stand on my front foot, I could do it. It's not, most people, or not most, but a lot of people are, they're hanging back, and I couldn't lift that back foot up if I tried. Or they're very, you know, their feet are all over the place. Balance is very important in the golf swing because the whole idea is to be consistent. Consistency is key. You don't need to have the prettiest swing in the world, but if you can strike the ball consistently, you're going to be all right. Tried the Gary Player. Yeah, these things are rock hard. I don't know if you can hear it. Solid as a rock, solid as a rock. All right. Sweet. So sweet. Honestly, not that I care about views. I always say these videos are for me. I do enjoy helping people. I've taught a lot of people in my life. But I'd probably get more views doing stuff like this than actually giving valuable tips about playing golf. I was going to baseball swing that. These range balls are actually a little harder to juggle with because they don't pop off the club face. Here, Shabba. Here I got a Pro VX. Listen to the difference between a Pro V, and this is the harder Pro V. That's a hard golf ball. It's one of the hardest balls out there. That's one of the hardest balls you'll find on tour compared to these balls. On the ground, crappy range ball, Pro V. Range ball, Pro V. And that's the left dash. That's actually the longest ball, I believe. I saw a chart recently. I think it was the left dash Pro VX is the longest ball they tested. Huh. That was funny. Right as I was coming into impact, I saw the ball just oscillate ever so slightly. Yeah. What else? What else? If you want to see the impact, you can see those. I think I can barely see it. My brightness is very low. They're a little all over the place, doing drills and just practicing. And not to mention I'm incredibly rusty. It's hit something a little longer. Hit some 6 irons. Felt good. Felt even better. The golf swing starts with a good grip. I'm not saying it needs to be a carbon copy of exactly neutral, but you want to be somewhere pretty close to neutral, maybe a little strong. Like with your left hand, if you can see all of your knuckles, that's okay, that's going to be a strong grip. But what I would suggest is just weaken your glove hand, just barely to the point where your pinky disappears, and then maybe just bring it back to where you can see that last knuckle again. That's going to be about as strong as you want it. If you go even further and further and get, way over here with everything, you're going to have to manipulate everything. Your club's going to be really closed coming back unless you turn, kink your arms in to get the club in an okay position. You're going to need to be probably cupped, seriously cupped at the top in order to have a square club base. And then coming down, your club is just going to be kind of swinging like this. And a lot of people think this really, really strong grip is going to help their slice, and it doesn't. Your slice is not the club face. It's almost never the club face. It's the swing path. Your grip has nothing to do with your swing path. But look, if I have a really strong grip and I release the club, look at how the release is. It's more of I'm just kind of adding dynamic loft to it. Versus with a neutral grip, look at how much better the club, you see how it's more of a rotational release with just a neutral grip, versus if I were to hold it way back here, it's kind of staying more square, which might seem okay. You don't want it to be, you don't want the club obviously to be like wide open and then just kind of flipping closed where you have this tiny fraction of a second where things are square. I'm not suggesting that, but there should be some rotation, because think about it, if my club face is square to my body, just turning my body, just the act of turning my body makes it look like that club face is opened. But has it? Or is it still exactly square to my body? That's the whole thing. Is see how it's matching my spine angle? The line the club is, this bottom edge, is essentially the same angle as, you know, my spine right here. And you don't open, you know, you're not just bringing it back with the arms. That's a big mistake. This would be the wrong way to take it back. It might look like an okay position, but the proper way to take it back is this triangle that your chest and your arms make. Keep that triangle going. So I feel like this is turning. And again, like if my club was attached to my chest, you know, basically halfway back in the backswing, it's just a shoulder turn. And then as you're getting to the top, it breaks down a little bit. You still want to keep a fairly straight lead arm. I'm not someone who believes that lead arm needs to be perfectly straight. I think it's okay if you get to the top and there's like a little bit of a breakdown of that. That's what I do. So I feel like just that little bit of a bend gives me a little more power versus just being stiff and rigid. But you don't want it to collapse, obviously. I'm talking about just a subtle, just a little bit of a bend, which you see a lot of great players do. That one-piece takeaway is just, and again, the club isn't actually opening, although it may appear that way if you do it right, because I'm just turning my chest. The club is still exactly oriented in the exact same way it was. If I just turn this way, it's still dead straight with my body. You know, I've turned back. See how it appears like the club is fanning open, but it's not. It's still dead square with my body. The wrong way to do it would be, you know, just like this. Now if I turn, look where I am. The club's over here. But if I do it correctly and I turn, the club's still in front of me. See, there's a lot less arm movement in the golf swing, in a proper golf swing, than most people think. And pros are really moving less than amateurs. I hear a lot about like, oh, but like, you know, they're young and flexible. Most people I see are making it harder on themselves and their body with more movements. I mean, it's true you might have a little shorter backswing if you're not as flexible. But the golf swing is really more of your shoulders and your chest and your torso. This is rotating. You know, if you were to have this club across my chest, I'd want to turn. So essentially I get to the ball or even past and back of the ball. You know, a nice big shoulder turn. So I could take the club back like this, and to the untrained eye, that might look like a pretty decent backswing, but it's not. I haven't moved my chest at all. My chest is still right here. I'm just going like this. It's hard for me to do because I don't do that. If I just swing like that, you're robbing yourself of power and you're using way too much arm movement. That is proper. I haven't really moved anything. It's my chest. This is about how much the golf club moves in the back swing. You know, obviously it moves more after impact, but as far as before impact, your club's really only moving this much as far as your hands and arms and club are concerned. That's about the amount of arm and hand movement there is in the golf swing. So I were to do this right off the ball and then just turn my shoulders, perfect backswing. I don't like to, in my actual swing, hinge right away and then turn. I like more of a just, you know, keeping this triangle going as long as I can. And then as I get to the top, it kind of just collapses and I get a little this ulnar deviation, a little wrist hinge, wrist cock at the top, which just kind of everything flows and sinks together. And that's how I like to do it. There's different methods. David Ledbetter was a big proponent of hinging early. I feel like that robs me of distance personally, but a good drill is to simply hinge, hinge the club basically to this point, and then just turn to the top. Perfect backswing. Use your chest. And especially with wedges and short irons, I've always loved the feeling of feeling like my sternum is what's swinging the club. I feel like I'm hitting the ball with the center of my chest. And here, let's go back to a wedge. I want to show you, especially on those dead arm shots as they're called, where so your arms and hands and wrists are responsible for about 70% of your speed and power. If I'm just using my arms and wrists, this is basically what your arms and wrists are doing through the swing, is this right here. If I don't move anything else. This is about the movement the hands do in the body. The mistake is so many people are doing this with their arms and their hands, and you shouldn't. It's really just this. Just doing this. But then I add in the shoulders, that's all I'm doing. Then I add the shoulders in, and then you have the whole golf swing. But still, all I'm really doing is this. And I like the feeling, especially with the short irons, of kind of dragging the handle, really feeling like I'm compressing the ball, but I don't keep dragging the handle after impact. It's kind of dragging until that last second of impact, and then it's kind of stopping. It's kind of pulling, and then the second impact happens, that release. You don't want to just pull. It's kind of just letting my left side, my lead arm, the weight that's going into my front foot, everything just falling into it, just gets that angle down through the ball. See, I was just right there, boom. Also, if you notice at impact, left arm, club, essentially are an extension of one another. I'm not saying there's only one way to do this. A lot of people feel it in their right hand, but think about towing a trailer or something, or towing anything on a bicycle, with a car, towing a trailer, no matter the size. If you're pulling something like that, pulling is incredibly stable and easy. You can turn, go whatever way you want, and the trailer, whatever you're pulling, is going to follow you. Pushing, on the other hand, any small deviation, and it's real easy to jackknife and kink things off the side. So pulling has always made more sense in my mind as far as being able to control everything. It's just so stable. Versus pushing, because at impact, before impact, your right arm is a little more kind of underneath in this like kind of kinked position. You're holding it here. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not doing nothing with my right arm or in hand. My right hand is, that space in my right hand is, it's like throwing. It's very rudimentary. It's ingrained in our DNA. You have to be very physically inept to not be able to throw. That's basically what we're doing. It's almost like if you were to take a golf ball, wind up kind of like in your, basically a backswing, and try to throw it at where, the tee is, or where your golf ball would normally be if you had two golf balls. That's basically all your right hand is doing, is just throwing. That's so easy. Anyone can do the throw part, but the actual control and manipulation of everything, I think it's a much better idea to control everything with the side that's pulling. the side where the back of the hand matches the club face perfectly, the side that is in perfect alignment with the shaft, so it's just an extension, the side that's going to be more stable. Because pushing something, I can get this very offline, like very easily, but just pulling, kind of gravity of pulling a club, it just arcs so naturally. I'm not doing, like I could just hold this, you know, very lightly, and the club just is arcing on its own. It's how it's designed. It's how the weight is. You can't fight, you don't want to fight gravity. It's a big mistake because people try to over muscle gravity, and that's where tempo comes into play. And just learning how to rhythmically swing back and forth, I think is one of the best things. And it's crazy. I know players that, you know, shoot in the 70s that struggle to do this. I see a lot of people like taking crazy practice swings. It's like, find some rhythm. You learn to utilize gravity, utilize the natural arc of the golf swing. Just loosens you up in general. And I like to brush the grass and find kind of where that low point of the club is. And I've mentioned this in other shorts, but I see a lot of people kind of, and if you look, I'm hitting way back here. What I like to do is brush the grass, but not only brush the grass, kind of exaggerating where I want my low point. So I'll get it up here, you know, near my front foot, more like where a driver position would be. You know, it's kind of up there. There's so many little nuances to playing your best golf. From, I've mentioned this in other videos, you know, knowing how to look up at the ball and not break your line, knowing how to line up and actually aim the club and your body correctly, knowing how to read the elements, you know, from the wind to the temperature to the slope you're on to the type of lie you have. Because a lot of times a thick, hairy lie grabs the hosel and wants to slam the club face shut, and you'll end up hitting a little weak hook thing. So what good players know to do, if they have a lie like that they think's going to snag the hosel, they might open the face just a touch and hold on a little tighter through impact to not let the club get snagged and turn over. You know, if I had to advance this from a thick lie, you know, say I just had a little, you know, 75 yarder and some gnarly stuff, it would probably like, it just felt like I gripped it a little tighter and didn't let the face close. Just kind of held the face angle. Versus normally, you know, you don't want any tension. You really want to just like flow with it. Every great player with like a really nice looking swing, you know, like a Ernie Els or a Fred Couples, almost everyone who has a swing that people admire, it's because they're relaxed and they're tension free. And you watch pros and they're constantly waggling and moving, you know, they're staying tension free right before they hit. I see so many people, you know, on the golf course, they're like, and it just looks so tense and stagnant. Good players aren't stagnant. They're not just, you know, again, they're getting comfortable, they're feeling the ground. I do this a lot personally. I kind of like setting my grip a little bit, and I kind of getting my fingers a little loose, kind of shifting a little back and forth, a little waggling. And as I'm waggling, right, what I like to do as a little trigger is I kind of push onto my front foot and almost get the shaft to do a tiny forward press. So it's kind of a front foot right before I go back. It's kind of a forward trigger that then triggers me to go back. Same in putting. I've always been a huge fan of You know, I'm getting comfortable. I'm kind of feeling relaxed. You know, I kind of do this a lot. I don't know if you can see it, but I'll kind of bounce the putter a little. I almost feel like I'm picking the putter up so it's hovering, but then just barely letting it touch the ground. It's kind of it's almost like I'm trying to make it rest on top of the grass but have no weight. So I'm essentially holding the weight of the putter as loose as I possibly can without it slipping from my hands, except for it's just barely I'm kind of just bouncing it lightly off the top of the grass. And then just make the stroke. And what I was getting at though was I like to do that and then just kind of see that little bit of a forward before the back, a little forward and then back. And you never want to be too tight, because especially on longer putts, the longer the putt, the more there'll be. But there is you don't want to like use your wrists in a putter, but just the natural force of things and being tension free, especially on a big lag putt, you can kind of see how there's like a little bit of a hinge. I'm not just rigid, but it's just that tension free. I'll exaggerate it a little bit, but there's just a little bit of this flow. And that same with a putter, same with a wedge, same with a driver. With all of them, you want to be tension free, rhythmic. Like Bruce Lee says, be like water. Water has the power to flow and to fit into any shape. It also has the power to destroy and is one of the most powerful things on the planet. You know, be like water, very adaptable, and just feel the flow. I know it sounds a little woo-woo, little funny, but it's true. You won't find a single good player ever that had a lot of tension in their swing. And again, hitting driver, I'm not just stiff and stagnant. I'm not doing this, looking up. I'm feeling relaxed. I'm looking up at the line. Let it rip. Well, I'm getting a phone call. I gotta bounce, y'all. Peace.